How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechta Kiddushin. Friends, friends. Today's a pretty interesting daf, I think, relatively speaking. The only thing I'm nervous about is I'm a little bit tired. I think it's 7 at night. I just hope I don't get tired in the middle of daf, because it is a relatively interesting daf, I'd say. Well, let's just maybe get started. So we're going to start off Pei Amud Beis at the 2 dots about, between 5 and 10 lines from the bottom of Pei Amud Beis. Aval Isha Achas. Okay, so we said that one fella could be alone with 2 fellows because, one girl could be alone with 2 boys, because we assume that they the boys won't want to be inappropriate in front of each other. Rav Yudah Amarav says, reviewed in the name Rav Loshanu Ella Bechsherim. Now, of course, this is assuming that we're talking about 2 boys who are appropriate, who are ksherim. Aval beprutzim, but inappropriate boys. Afilu be'asara nami lo. So if there's inappropriate boys, even 10 inappropriate boys would not be acceptable, because the whole point is that we want to avoid inappropriate behavior, and if we have inappropriate people, so then even lots of them will just be lots of inappropriate behavior. Have a maise, there was once even a maise, votziua asara b'mita. There was even a maise once where there were 10 boys who were inappropriate with the fella. Amr Yosef Teda the mechabre be asar vegan vekshura. After all, I can give you an example of a situation where a bunch of people could do an avera together. For example, if you have 10 people who get together and steal some kind of a beam, right? Meaning the whole point of saying that one fella could be alone with 2 fellows is because they're going to be embarrassed, they're going to be hesitant to sin in front of one another. But there are instances, for example, a bunch of thieves can 10 thieves can get together and steal a beam or something. They're not embarrassed of each other. So also if you have 10 inappropriate boys, then they could be inappropriate and they won't care. So that would not be allowed. Fine. Right, so again, Rav Yosef Teda the mechaber be asar vegan vekshura velo michsvei me'adadi, and they're not ashamed in front of one another. Name Mesele. So let's say that the following is a support. Mosin lo shnei tamidei chacham shemayavu eleh baderech. Man, Babylon. Man, we haven't even started today's daf. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm going to be tired, but there's a lot of good stuff on this stuff. It's a lot of good stuff. So, most of those shnei tamidei chacham, we say by a sota, right? A fellow suspects that his wife was had an affair, and the whole sota thing. So the husband and wife go to Yerushalayim together so that they could do the whole sota thing. And on the way, right, most of those shnei tamidei chacham, we assigned to him 2 sages, shemayavu aleh baderech, essentially to prevent him from because once he suspects her, the husband and wife are no longer allowed to have bia. So they get 2 Talmidei Chachamim to sort of make sure that they're not going to have bia on the way. Talmidei Chachamim in Sheda Alma lo. And so the Gemara wants to say, you see, it's Davka Shnei Talmidei Chachamim, right? There are people who are appropriate, but not to other people. Lo Shani Talmidei Chachamim diyadei la'asuyeh bei. No, the whole point of the Talmidei Chachamim is just so that they know how to warn him, right? They know the halachas that he would not be allowed to have beer with his wife, and therefore they would be able to warn him. That's why they're a Talmidei Chacham, but not necessarily to say that other people wouldn't be trusted. Amar Vidas Amarav Loshanu Ela Ba'ir. When we say that a fella could be alone with 2 fellows, that's only in the city. Aval Baderech. But if they're traveling, well then Achiyu Shlosha. Then there would have to be 3, right? So if a fella is traveling, so then 2 fellows would not be enough. You'd have to have 3 fellows there. Shemitzarich echad meim lahashtin, because if one of them goes to pish, v'nimtza echod misachid ima'erva. If there's only two of them, right? If it's one fella and two fellows, one of them goes to pish. So then you just have one fella. You have a fella and a fellow alone together. So therefore, you have to have three. So that if one goes to pish, you still have two. It's still going to be one fella with two fellows. Nema misayeh lei. Let's say that this supports Rav Yehuda Amarav. Mosim lo shnei talmidei chachamim shem yavo aleh b'derech. So we said that by the Sota that they assign two talmidei chachamim. So trei v'iu hatzlasa. So we see that if it's the husband, the wife, and two talmidei chachamim, so there you have it. They're traveling, and it's one fella and three fellows. Hasam kiechi tinabe alei saide. Say no. The whole point of the two witnesses, the two talmidei chachamim, is so that they could be witnesses, right? If the husband and the wife have bia, so at least they'll be able to testify to the Sanhedrin. Look, this is what happened. Okay, but it's not davka because of the requirement to have three when they're traveling. Rav and Rav Yehuda were traveling together. And there was a fella in front of them. Rav and Rav Yehuda were traveling. There was a fella in front of them. Omle Rav to Rav Yehuda, and Rav says to Rav Yehuda, "Dal karech mikami gehenim, hurry up so that we can get in front of hell." Right? Meaning they didn't want to be walking behind her. They said, "Let's just kind of go speed up and go past her." Omar lei. So Rav Yehuda says to Rav, "But weren't you the one who says b'chsherim shapri domi, that with ksherim one fella and two fellows is okay?" That's exactly the matzav. She's a fellow, we're fellows. That should be acceptable. Omar lei. So Rav responds to Rav Yehuda, "Miyemai de b'chsherim kigon ona va'at." Rav says to Rav Yehuda, "What? Do you think that when I'm talking about ksherim, you think shmendriks like me and you?" Ela kigon mai. So Rav Yehuda is wondering, what? Well, then who is considered kosher? Kigon to Reb Chanina by Papi v'chaverev. Well, like Reb Chanina by Papi and his friends, right? We learned about them on Daf Mem of Masechta Kiddushin, right? 40 days ago. Excuse me. Babylon. We learned about them, right? Right. That was the whole thing. That they were the matrons, the noble women who wanted to have beer with them, and they managed to avoid it. So they would be considered ksherim. But Rav says, me and you aren't considered ksherim. Let's get ahead of this fella and move ahead. Amar Rav, says Rav, Malkin al yichud ve'ein osun al hayichud. Says Rav, if a fella and a fellow are alone together, so we can administer lashes. However, that would not be a reason for divorce, right? They aren't usher to each other, right? So if a fella, for example, if a fella is alone with another fellow, so we would give her makis, but we wouldn't, but she could remain married to her husband. She could remain married to her husband. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, Lamar in ella biyichud pnuya. So when we say, says Rav Ashi, that when we say that we give lashes, that's only if she's an unmarried fella who is alone with a fellow. Aval biyichud de'eshes ish lo. But if she's a married fella, then we would not give lashes. Shalotei motzilaz al boneo. Because we don't want to have rumors about her children, right? Meaning we don't want people to say, wow, why are we giving lashes to this fella? It must be that she had an affair. Now, nowadays we don't have capital punishment, so that's why they're lashing her. But so Rav Ashi says, if she's a married fella and she's receiving lashes, people are going to think she's receiving lashes because she had an affair, even though the truth is it's just for yichud because she was alone. So therefore, to avoid the rumors, we don't give lashes to a married fella. Marzutra malke umachris. Marzutra would give lashes to a married fella, but he would also make an announcement. Look, we're giving makis to this fella. However, it is not because she had an affair necessarily. It's because she was misyachid with another fellow. Amalei Rav Nachman parhati to Rav Ashi. So says Rav Nachman be parhati to Rav Ashi. My nami lil kivilichris. Rav Ashi, why don't you do the same thing? Why don't you give makis to a married fella, but just make an announcement? Look, we're giving makis because of yichud, not because of an actual affair. Amalei. So Rav Ashi answers, Ika deshama beha. Yeah, but inevitably there are going to be people who heard about the lashes but didn't hear about the announcement. So therefore we just avoid it. Rav says, Rav Malkin al lotova ashmueh. Rav says that we can give makis even for rumors. But if there are rumors that a fellow has been acting inappropriate, we can give makis for that. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, al bonai ki lotova ashmueh, that Eli says to his children, al bonai, no my children, it's like a chiyuv lav ki lotova ashmueh, because of these bad rumors about you. So we see that rumors would be considered a lav, and therefore you can give makis for them. Marzutra, mosiv la afsira al kisvei. Marzutra would put some kind of I forget what the word is, a halter, was it called, maybe on the shoulders, umakrile al bonai, and he would say, you're violating the law of al bonai, right, about the rumors, and then he would give lashes. Omar Rabba says, Rabba bailo ba'ir ein choshishim mishum yichud. That's an important halacha of yichud, that if her husband is in town, is in the neighborhood, so then there's no issue of yichud, because he can come home anytime, and because there is the risk of the husband coming home at any time, therefore the wife could be alone with another fellow, because we can assume that they won't do anything inappropriate, since the husband can come home anytime. Amr of Yosef says, Yosef Pesach Pasuch L'shus Harabim Ein Choshishim Mishum Yichud. If there is an open door to the public domain, so it's not an issue of yichud, I assume, because it's not particularly private. People can come in, people can come out, people can maybe hear what's going on in the room, whatever it is. So that would be okay as well. Rav Bibi Ikla Levei Rav Yosef. Rav Bibi visited Rav Yosef. After they had a Geshmaka Suda, Omar Lehu, Rav Bibi suggested to Rav Yosef and his wife, Shkolu Darga Mituse Bivi. Remove the ladder so that I can't get down to the main floor where you are. Meaning the point was, he wanted to make sure that it would be physically impossible, or at least extremely challenging for him to interact with Rav Yosef's wife, which could, be problematic. But one second, what was Rav Bivi concerned about? Rabba had said that if the fellow's husband is around, so there's no issue of yichud. So Rav Yosef is around. What are you concerned about? So Shiny Rav Bivi Deshushvinte Avoy V'Gai. Well, Rav Bivi was, very close friends with Rav Yosef, and he was concerned that maybe he was a little bit too comfortable, and even though Baila Ba'ir, he didn't trust himself, but he wanted to be extra machmir. He says, look, just remove the ladder, said I can't get down to where Rav Yosef's wife is, and like this he knew that he wasn't going to have any issues. Omer of Kahana says of Kahana, Anoshim bachutz v'noshim bifnim, and choshishim mishum yichud. That if you have, let's say like an inner room and an outer room, so if the men are outside and the women are in the inner room, then there's no problem of yichud, right? Because if the women who are in the inner room leave through the outer room, but the outer room has all the men, so it would be one woman with multiple men, so that would be acceptable. However, if it's fakert, if it's the men in the inner room and the women in the outer room, it's a problem, because if one man leaves the inner room to leave through the outer room, and there's all the women, so you have one man with two women, and that is a problem. Interesting. So in the Brisa, we learn fakert. We learn the opposite, which is if the women are on the inside, if the women are on the I gotta use my brain. it's not hard, I just can't remember who says what. But if the women are on the inside, so we had said that would be no problem. So, because it would be one fella and multiple fellows. But here we're saying so Isaac is saying fakert that actually it would be a problem because let's say fakert for a second. If the men are in the inner room and the women are in the outer room, in that case it's okay because sure, if a man leaves the inner room to leave and he's leaving through the outer room where all the women are, so it'll be one man with multiple fellas, but because it's the way of the exit, so there's always a chance that another one of the men is going to be leaving, and right. So therefore, there's going to be the potential for other men to be around, and therefore it's not an issue of yichud. So yes, one fellow with multiple fellas is going to be a problem, but in this particular case, since it's also the exit, so it's not an issue. But if it's fakert, if it's the men on the outer room and the women in the inner room, well, then what's interesting about it is that in the event that one of the men from the outer room went into the inner room, well then none of the other men are assumed that they were going to be going to the inner room. So what you have is a situation where you have one fellow with multiple fellas, and that could be a problem. Okay. So now Amar Abai says, Abai, Hashta de Omar Rav Kahana Hochi Vitana Masnisa Ipchos. Now we basically have Rav Kahana who taught it one way and a brisa that says fakert. On an Ivid L'chuma we should be strict. I don't know what that means. Maybe not have this kind of a setup or whatever it is. Make sure that I guess either way, either version won't be problematic somehow. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. Maybe just excuse me. I don't know, maybe keep the doors open or something, say, what's going on in there? Okay, fine. Abaye dayer gulfe rava dayer kono. Abaye, when there were men and women in a place, so he would set up a mechitza with like jugs, so that if you tried to cross the mechitza, it would like make noise. Also, Rava would do this with like reeds. Also, if you stepped on the reeds, they would kind of ruffle, and then people would hear, so that to kind of prevent people from going from the boys' side to the girls' side. Amar Ovin sakva deshata rigla, says Ovin that the sort of most problematic time of the year is the festivals, the Shalosh Regalim, because that's when there's the big shiurim and the men and the women are coming together and they're talking and then this and that. So it could be problematic during the Shalosh Regalim. Hanach Shvuyoso, this is pretty famous, I think. Hanach Shvuyoso da'asoy l'nardoah. There were captives who were brought to Nardoah, which is also interesting because were there like a lot of captives in Nardoah, right? Of course, Shmuel's daughters, I think two of his daughters were taken captive, and Shmuel, of course, was in Nardoah. So I don't know, was like, is there like a lot of captives in Nardoah? I don't know. But there were these captives who were brought to Nardoah. So where were they going to sleep? So they brought these two girls to the house of Rav Amram Chasida. They figured let them stay there for the night. Ashkolu darga mikamayu. So Rav Amram Chasida wanted to make sure that that there weren't going to be any potential issues of yichud. So he removed the ladder from right. They were, I guess, on one level up, and he removed the ladder so that there would be no connection between his level and their level, and there won't be any issues. Now, one of the captives was walking by, and he got a glimpse of her through the opening, in like the hatch or something, kind of the way to get up to the attic where they were. And Rav Amram Chasida was suddenly very attracted to her. Shakli Rav Amram ledarge delo havu yachlin be'asar lemedalye, and Rav Amram Chasida, he went and he took a ladder that even 10 people wouldn't be able to move this ladder. It was a very heavy ladder. Dalia lechude, and he moved it on his own. Solik v'azlan, he was going up to the attic, going up to the second level. He was going to do an Aveira. Kimota lefalga darga. But when he got halfway up the ladder, ifshach, he stopped. Ramakala nura be'amram, and he yells out there's a fire in the house of Amram. Osu Rabbanon, the rabbis came, right? Everybody came. They heard that there's a fire in the house of Rav Amram. They came to see how they could help, how they could extinguish the fire. Amrulei Ksiftinon, and the rabbis understood what happened. Here's Rav Amram. Here's Rav Amram halfway up the ladder to these captives. It was not looking like a good situation. So the rabbi said to Rav Amram Chasida, you've embarrassed us, right? Ksiftinon, you've embarrassed us. You've embarrassed us. This is not the sight that we want to see. Rav Amram Chasida, on his way up a ladder to do an avera with these shvuyas, Omer lehu, and Rav Amram Chasida says to them, Mutov tichsefu be'amram ba'al ma'adein. Better that you should be embarrassed at my house in this world. V'lo tichsefu minei la'alma da'asei, and don't be embarrassed for me in the world to come. In the world to come. I'm much happier that right there. Meaning, right, he says, Nur be'amram, he says there's a fire so that people will right, so that he could stop himself and he wanted people to see, look what I've done. He felt terrible. And he says, look, better that you should see me and understand what happened in this world than to find out in the world to come. Ashboe diyanpak mine. Rav Amram Chasida then made the Yetzer Hara swear that it should go away. He didn't want anything to do with it anymore. Right? On account of the Yetzer Hara, right, he moved this ladder that was extremely difficult to move. He just moved it by himself. He was on his way to go do an avera and he stopped himself. He says, look, I don't want this Yetzer Hara anymore. Nafak mine ki amuda denura. And his Yetzer Hara went out from his body. It was like a pillar of fire. That's how strong his Yetzer Hara was. Omar le, Rav Amram Chasida says to the Yetzer Hara, Chazi da'at nura ve'ana bisra. Look, you are fire and I am meat. Usually fire consumes meat. But ve'ana adifna minach. And yet, me, the meat, is greater than you. Right? He managed to overcome his Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara was fire and he was meat. And he says, look, I was able to outperform the Yetzer Hara, to defeat the Yetzer Hara. Reb Meir have mislotzleids be'ovei averi. Reb Meir used to sort of belittle people who were unable to overcome the Yetzer Hara. He figured, come on, you just don't care enough to defeat your Yetzer Hara. Yom echad idmele sa'in ki etzisa. And then one day the Yetzer Hara, the sa'in, comes dressed up like a woman, like a fella. And she was on the other side of the river. Now there was no ferry for Reb Meir to go on to get to the other side of the river. So nakat mitzra v'ka'avar. So he took a rope. Apparently there was like some kind of like beams that were laid out across the river, the stream, and there was a rope on top, and he crossed the river on this like beams and ropes, not so pashit. Kimata palga mitzra, and when he got halfway across, Shavke, the Yetzer Hara let him go. Omar, and the Yetzer Hara says, if not for the fact that in Shamayim they call out, they announce, Hizaru Reb Meir v'saraso, be careful of Reb Meir and his Torah. Shavisi lidmach taite ma'e, I was about to make make you valueless, make you like worth 2 cents. Right? The Yetzer Hara had full control over Reb Meir, and he only let up because of Hizaru Reb Meir v'saraso. Okay. Rabbi Akiva, similar story with Rabbi Akiva. You would also belittle people who were unable to control the Yetzer Hara. And he figured, how hard can it be? These people just don't care enough. One day, the Satan showed up, and the Satan looked like a woman at the top of a palm tree. And Rabbi Akiva was so attracted to this woman at the top of the palm tree, Mamish climbed the palm tree in order to be with her. Kimata lifalge de dikla, but when he got halfway up the palm tree, Shavke Yitzhar let Rabbi Akiva go. Omar, and he says, if not for the fact that they announced in Shamayim, Hizaru Rabbi Akiva v'Sarasu, be careful of Rabbi Akiva and his Torah. If not for that fact, I was about to make your life worthless. You would have done a big aver. Plimo, Havaroga Lemeimer, Koyoma Gira Be'ene Desatin. Plimo had the minig that every day he would say there should be arrows in the eyes of the Satan, of Satan. Yom Echad Mali Yom Kippur Hava, and one Erev Yom Kippur, Idmei Le Ke'anya, the Satan appeared to Plimo as a poor fellow, as a pauper. Also, Kara above, and he knocked on Plimo's door. Afikule Rifta, so they brought out for this fellow, for the Satan. They didn't know, they thought he was a fellow. They brought out for him bread. Amalei, the Satan says, Yoma Kia Idno Kuli Alma Gavoy V'Ona Avroi. The Satan says, look, I don't understand. It's Erev Yom Kippur. Everybody's inside. Why do I have to be outside? Aile Vikrivule Rifta. Okay, so they brought him inside and they gave him bread inside. Amalei, the Satan says, Yoma Kia Idno Kuli Alma Atake. Look, a day like today, everybody's sitting at the tish, at the table. And I'm all alone. Aisu Osvuhu Ataka. So they brought him to the table and he had a seat at the tish. Ahava Yosef Miloi Nafshe Shichona Vecheve Ole, and Mama, she was sitting there, he had these like boils and pus filled situations. Vavakavid Bey Mila Demais, and he was doing all sorts of disgusting things. Amrulay, so they said to the Satan, to the visitor, Tiv Shapir, no, sit nicely. Amrulay Avuli Kasa, and the Satan says, give me a cup. Yavulay, so they gave him a cup. Yavulay Kasa, they gave him a cup. Achmar Shada Bey Kicho. So, and he hacked up some phlegm, and he pushed it, hacked a lugi into the wine cup. Nacharu Bey, and they got upset with the Satan, Shakav Amis, and the Satan got all flustered and he died. But then Plimo heard that the people were saying Plimo Kotogava, Plimo Kotogava. That Plimo killed a fellow. So Arak Vitasha Nafshe Bevesakise. So Plimo went to escape and he was hiding in the outhouse. Also Basre, the Satan followed Plimo there, Nafal Kame, and he fell before Plimo. Ki dechazi dav mitztayer, and when the Yitzhara saw that Plimo was being very flustered, Godle Nafshe, the Satan revealed himself to Plimo. Omle my time my tochi, and the Satan says to Plimo, why do you say this every day, that there should be arrows in my eyes? Velechi ema. So Plimo says, what else? And what else should I say? Omle lema mar rachmana ligar be b'Satan. Well, don't say that there should be arrows in my eyes. Say that the Eibishter should repulse the Satan. Right? That's a better option. All right, right. I mean, it's like from the puzzle. Yigar b'chal haSatan. Okay. Very interesting story. Rav Chia bar Ashi. Havaragul kol idun davanofel lape. Rav Chia bar Ashi, every time he would say Tachanun, Hava Omar, he would say Arachman Yatzilenu b'Yitzhahara. That's may God save me from the evil inclination. Yom echad shma'atinu dvisu. One day, Rav Chia bar Ashi's wife heard him saying this prayer of save me from the Yitzhahara. Omar, she says, Michli, I don't understand. Hakam shnei de parish le minoi. My time achi. I don't understand. It's already been several years, right? We're older, right? We haven't had beer together in years. Why is he saying this statement every single day to save me from the Yitzhahara? What Yitzhahara is he talking about? Yom Echada Havakagaris Beginte. So one day Rav Chia bar Ashi was learning in the garden. Koshta Nafsha, and his wife got all dressed up and with perfumes and things. Chalfa v'tanya, and she passed by Rav Chia bar Ashi multiple times. Kame Omar, and he says to her, Man at, who are you? Omra, she says, Ana charusa dehaji miyoma. I am charusa, the harlot, and I've just gotten back today, Tova. And Rav Chia bar Ashi desired her. Omrle, and she says to him, I see nearly bring for me lach rumana, a pomegranate, teresh tzutzisa, at the top of this tree. Shavar ozal ase niela, and he went and he got down the pomegranate from the top of the tree. Ki also levese, and then when Rav Chia bar Ashi got home, Havaka shagrad visu tanura, his wife was heating up a stove, an oven. Solik v'koyoset begave, and Rav Chia bar Ashi went and sat in the oven, in the fire. Omrle, and his wife says to him, My hi, why are you sitting in the fire? Omarla, he says to her, Hachi v'achi hava maisa, let me tell you exactly what happened. There was a whole story with the harlot. Omrle, ana avoy, she says, don't worry, it was me. It wasn't actually a harlot, it was me, your wife. Lo ashkach ba, but he didn't listen to her. Ad yavale simani, until she gave a sign. She produced the pomegranate that he had gotten for her. Omar lo, but Rav Chia bar Ashi was not pacified by that. He says, Ona mia li'isur ichavni. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that it was you. I thought I was doing an avera, and I intended to do an avera. Kol yomav she'oso tzaddik misane. And for the rest of his life, Rav Chia bar Ashi was fasting because of what happened that day, until he eventually even died from all of his fasting. Where am I? Titania is within a brayso. Isha aferim b'Hashem yislach. It says by Hafaras Nidarim that a husband can be made for the Nidarim of his wife. Hashem yislach la, and God will forgive her. But me'akos of medaber, what's the pasuk talking about? If the husband is made for the neder, then how is it possible to sin? There's no neder anymore. Be'isha shenadra b'nazir, well, the pasuk is talking about if a fella made a neder that she was going to be a nazira, v'shama baila, and her husband hears v'hefer la, and he's made for the neder, so she's actually not a nazira. Vehi lo yada, but she didn't know that her husband shehefer la, she didn't know that her husband was made for a neder, so she thought that she's a nazira. And even though she was aware that she was a nazira, she was drinking wine, she was becoming tamei meis, doing things that a nazira can't do. And we're saying that in that case, it's still over an avera, right? So even though he's made for the neder, and technically speaking, she wasn't violating the neder naziris, but because she thought she was, so Hashem yislach la, that is why she needs forgiveness. Rabbi Akiva, whenever Rabbi Akiva would get to this pasuk, have a bachi, he would cry, Omar, he would say, that if a fellow intended to eat pork, but the meat ended up being goat meat or sheep meat, the Torah says that you need kapara uslicha. You say, right? Even though you ended up not doing the avera, but you thought that you were doing the avera. Well then, Rachmana litzlan, in a situation where he thought that he was eating pork, and in fact he did end up eating pork, alachas kama v'chama, then certainly that is a serious predicament, right? If when he thought he was doing an avera, but it turns out he didn't do an avera, he still needs forgiveness. Well, then in a situation when he thought he was doing an avera and he actually did an avera, he would need forgiveness. And similarly, that if he doesn't know and he's guilty, so he has to bring a korban chatas, right? If he didn't realize that he did something wrong, he has to bring korban chatas. when Rabbi Kiva would reach this pasuk, he would cry, look, if a person thought that he was eating permitted fats, and it turns out that by accident he ate forbidden fats, Amr Torah nonetheless, he needs to bring a korban chatos. Somebody who from the start thought that he knew that he was eating chelev, halachas kama v'chama, certainly that's pretty serious. Isi ben Yudah Omer says, Isi ben Yudah v'lo yadav v'ashim v'nosa avonu al dover zeh yidvu kol adovim. That on this for this matter, all of the sensitive people will be sensitive. All of the sensitive people will grieve, right? So we talk about situations where kind of your actual actions didn't end up like your intentions, right? In the first case, you thought you were doing an avera, it turns out you didn't. Second case, you thought you were not doing an avera, it turns out you did. In both cases, you need atonement. And certainly in a case where you intend to do an avera and you do the avera, that's gonna not be ideal. Okay, fine. Misyachid Adam im imo, a fellow could be misyachid with his mother, could be alone with his mother. Amr of Yudah, Amr of Asi, misyachid Adam im achoso, a fellow could be alone with his sister. V'darim imo v'imbito, can live together with his mother and his daughter. Ki Amra Kamid Shmuel, and when Rav Yehuda says it to Shmuel, Amar Shmuel says, Osur l'syachid im kol arayis shebatorah. You cannot be alone with any of the arayis in the Torah. Va'afilu in behema, you can't even be alone with an animal. Where you're not allowed to sleep with an animal, you can't be alone with an animal. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, Misyachid Adam im imo v'im bito. Our Mishnah says a person can be misyachid with his mother, with his daughter. V'yoshin imoim b'kev basur. They could sleep together. I think it means unclothed. Tiyuvta de Shmuel. So it sounds like this is a kasha on Shmuel, because Shmuel is saying that you can't be together with any of the rice, but our Mishnah seems to be saying you could be together with your mother, with your daughter. So Amalach Shmuel, so Shmuel would say to you, well, the taimech, according to you, what's the tiny, that which you learn in the Brisa, achoso, v'chamoso, ushar kol arayis shebatorah, a fellow's sister, a fellow's mother-in-law, and all the arayis in Torah, ein misyachid imoyim, a fellow cannot be alone with them. Ela be'edim, unless there are witnesses there to make sure nothing wrong is happening. Be'edim in shelo be'edim lo. Davka, okay, it's only allowed if there are witnesses, otherwise you can't be alone with any of the arayis. Ela tanoi, rather it must be that it's machlokas tanoim about can you be alone with these people. The Tan is learning about, so Amr of Meir says, Reb Meir, Izaru bi mipnei biti. That be careful, I don't want to be alone with my daughter. Amr of Tarfin Izaru bi mipnei kalasi. Tarfin says, look, I don't want to be alone with my daughter-in-law. Like all of us, so Talmud, a certain student, belittled Reb Tarfin, Amr Bavo, Mishum Abchanin Gamliel, lo ayu yomim mu'atim, ad shenichshel also Talmud b'chamoso. And sure enough, it wasn't that much longer. This fellow who belittled Reb Tarfin ended up sleeping with his mother-in-law. All right. Afilu im behema. So he said that the fellow shouldn't even be alone with an animal. Abai machlale michula davra. Abai, if he was going out to the field, he would make sure that there were no animals around on the entire field. Rav Sheshes Maver lay matzur. Rav Sheshes would put the animals on the other side of the fence. Ma'aber mitzvah. Rav Chanan min Ada ikla Rav Kahana. Rav Chanan min Ada visited Rav Kahana from Nara, was in Pumnara. Chazid the Yosef Kagaris, and he saw that Rav Kahana was learning. V'kaima, he was learning. V'kaima be'emakame, and there was an animal in front of him. So Amrle. So Rav Chanan min Ada says to Rav Kahana, Lo savela mar afilu in behema. Don't you hold that you shouldn't even be alone with an animal? Amr he says, I didn't realize that the animal was there. I guess he was so engrossed in his learning. Amr says, a fellow could be alone with two yivamis. Because the assumption is that they don't like each other, right? So meaning, if they're right, if Reuven is married to Sarah, Shimon is married to Rivka, so Sarah and Rivka don't like each other very much because, if Reuven dies, then they're going to be co-wives, and that's not something that they're excited about. So a fellow can be alone with them because, they're not going to keep any secrets over there because they hate each other. V'im shtei tzaris, or with two co-wives, im isha v'chamosa, a fella and her mother-in-law, im isha v'hasbaila, a fella and the daughter of her husband, who's I guess not her daughter, im isha with a did I skip? I don't even know. Okay, v'tinokas sheyodas tam bia, as well as wow, I'm starting to get pretty tired. That im isha v'tinokas, with a could be alone with a woman and a daughter yodas tam bia ve'en moseres atzma lebia, that is old enough that she's able to have bia but doesn't she's not sort of sexually attracted yet, so therefore she wouldn't be interested in having bia. Fine. Nigdilu, is it? Wow, I'm telling you, I'm starting to get tired. I was nervous I was going to get tired in this daf because it really is a good daf. It's a little bit chaval that like my brain is closing down for the evening. Okay, but we're almost done. Where am I? So we said that once the children get older, then they should put on clothes when they go to sleep together as a family. How old is considered old? Rav Aza Omer Rav Asi Tinok is bas teisha shanim v'yomechad, Tinok ben 12 shanim v'yomechad, that a girl when she's 9 and a day, a boy when he's 12 and a day. Yigdam, those who say Tinok is bas 12 shanim v'yomechad, Tinok ben 13 shanim v'yomechad, that for girls it's 12 in a day, for boys it's 13 in a day. But by the girls, whether you say it's 9 in a day, whether you say it's 12 in a day, there would only be an issue once already she's reached puberty. Amrafim by Papa, Amrav Chizda Loshanu Ella Sheina Bo Shalamud Lefan of Aruma. All of these numbers are only relevant or become irrelevant, if from an earlier point she was uncomfortable being naked in front of them. But once already she's embarrassed to be in front of her family naked, then that means that that means that at that point already she has Yetzer Hara, so that means that she shouldn't at that point you should put on clothes. Rav Achabar Abba Ikla Levei Rav Chizda Chasani. Rav Achabar Abba visited his son-in-law Rav Chizda. Fine. Shakle Levaz Barte, and he took his granddaughter Osvu Bechanfe. It means either that he put her on his lap or they went under a blanket together. Omar Lei. So Rav Chizda says, Lo Savila Mar de Mikadsha, but don't you know that she's betrothed already? She's Mikudeshes. Omar Lei. So Rav Achabar Abba says, Avarta l'chad Rav, you violated what Rav says. Dam Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Item Rav Elazar, also Adam she Yikadesh is bito, Kshiktana ad she tagli v'tomer b'floni anirotza. Right, that a fellow should, even though technically midoraisa, a fellow can marry off his minor daughter, his daughter who's a minor, but we don't do that because we say wait until she's older and she could decide if she's interested. So how come Rav Chizda married off his daughter as a ketana? Marnami overlay adishmul, to which Rav Chizda responds, but you are also violating that which Shmuel said, Amar Shmuel, Emishtamshim Beisha, that you don't interact with a girl. So why are you kind of with my granddaughter, with your granddaughter, with my daughter? Amalei Anakidach de Shmuel. Severely, I hold like the other opinion of Shmuel, Amar Shmuel, Hakol L'Shem Shemaim. As long as it's L'Shem Shemaim, then it's fine. So Kilu, he has his granddaughter, let's say it's on his lap. He's put his granddaughter on his lap, like there's nothing wrong with that. He's just trying to be a good grandfather. So that would be okay. Cheved, that was Daf Pei Aleph. Again, little chaval that I got so tired because I ended up just kind of getting through it as opposed to Would have been nice if there was, anyways, apologies for being tired. But yeah, we talked about like Yichud and stuff. A lot of interesting stuff about Yichud, right? Like Baila Ba'ir and if Pesach B'soch L'Shusarabim. Lots of interesting things about Yichud, some interesting Agaritas, Nura Be'amram. A lot of interesting things. That was the Pei Aleph, Masech Kiddushin. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.